before. I've been speaking with you guys individually a little bit. I'm going to be opening things. We're going to be doing this hopefully live. I guess we'll see. Things are going to be a little bit dynamic. I read last year, so it was emotional, full, some technical things. So just trying to make sure the mic works for us. I'm going to recommend that we kind of line up things deep on this side so that everything's coming out forward. And then I'll pass the mic quickly to that's pretty good. But this energy, the next person coming out. Oh, so you couldn't hear me. Is it? That's the feedback I wanted. So how is this? Do you want to turn it up a little bit? Because actually, I talk a little bit louder, and I'm not sure about everyone here. So, all right, testing, 1, 2, 3. We probably have the, I guess, yoga a little bit to do. That's a good thing. Weather sounds like it's actually looks like it's cooperating with us, so that's another great thing. Yeah.
Is there someone who might be able to be in the back and just give you a thumbs up at the beginning?
I just got a thumbs up from Valerie on her way walking.
So will we do that for each person? Because it's going to vary depending on our heights, and when we get there, what works perfectly for you might not work perfectly.
Yes.
See, this is what I call community and support.
Yeah.
So, yes.
So just a thumbs up and you got it.
I will take it from any of you guys around. If you like it, I will notice. If you like, and if I go along and start getting away from the mic, cut. I'm that type of guy. Give you the feedback. Whoa! Watch out. We already got a little bit of wind here. There is a podium copy that's up here. It's numbered, but it doesn't have people's names on it. We are going to try to start promptly at noon. So it is noon. All right. So with that said, shall we get ready to go? Let me know when we're going to be ready to rock.
For opening remarks to start?
We're rolling.
Okay, we're rolling. Live.
All right, guys. Welcome here to Strawberry Lakes Museum. My name is Rodney Warren. I'm actually a board member for the last year, and it's an honor and privilege to be here. So, just a little bit about myself. It's not about being a board member. It's about being a fellow citizen. When I look out and I see all of you guys here present, when I see that the weather is cooperating with us, I recognize the fact that we are community citizens, that we are neighbors, that we are brothers, we're sisters, fathers, and I'm a new pet dad. So, but it's not about me. This is about Frederick Douglass. This is about our nation, our union, our community. This is about 250-year anniversary right now. So I just recently learned that the meaning of the 4th of July for the Negro, we're reading the abridged version. So it's longer? No, it's shorter. But it's still over 5,370 words that are so relevant today, past, present, and future. So with that said, it's Frederick Douglass. We are here. We are invited with an invitation to actually experience that past, that present, and hope for the future. So I'm not going to go a whole bunch with that. I'm just going to say that this year we have about 20 New Hampshire towns participating. We're participating here in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. There's going to be about 13 readers here. So give your love to these people, give your support. And I'll just go and start that, I'd like you to make sure your cell phones are off, or at least muted. If you can't hear someone, you can give the verbal cues, you can give the right on, but keep it respectful. At the end of this, there's going to be a point in time where we're all going to say Frederick Douglass words, a poem, a prayer at the end. So there's an invitation there for you to join us. You're already participating, so thank you. So with that said, while reading Frederick Douglass' work is a powerful experience for many, it is only one piece of the long overdue conversations that our communities need to have. We hope that these readings will be a starting point for those difficult dialogues, and that they will provide an opportunity for us to engage in deeper conversations that will lead to actions to help build more inclusive and just communities today and forward. So with that said, we've already gone over some of the rules and regulations. I'd like you guys to stand up here 3 deep or so. Adjust the mic will help you, so don't worry about that. I'm going to point out that we should line up and exit probably the same way, and speak directly, speak your heart, take your time. We're here listening, we're a community, and I want to thank you for that. So first stop is going to be Buzz. Buzz has been a community reader for several years. He is our opening guy right now. Thank you for participating, Buzz. You have the show.
I think that works. Mr. President, friends, and fellow citizens, the task before me is one which requires much previous thought and study for its proper performance. I do not remember ever to have appeared as a speaker before any assembly more shrinkingly, nor with greater distrust of my ability than I do this day. The papers and placards say that I am to deliver a 4th of July oration. The fact is, ladies and gentlemen, the distance between this platform and the slave plantation from which I escaped is considerable, and the difficulties to be overcome in getting from the latter to the former are by no means slight. That I am here today, to me, is a matter of astonishment as well as of gratitude. This, for the purpose of this celebration, is the 4th of July. It's the birthday of your national independence and of your political freedom. This to you is what the Passover was to the emancipated people of God. It carries your minds back to the day and to the act of your great deliverance. This celebration also marks the beginning of another year of your national life, and reminds you that the Republic of America is now 76 years old. I am glad, fellow citizens, that your nation is so young. You are, even now, only in the beginning of your national career, still lingering in the period of childhood. I repeat, I am glad this is so. There is hope in the thought, and hope is much needed under the dark clouds which lower above the horizon. Fellow citizens, 76 years ago, the people of this country were British subjects. The style and title of your sovereign people, in which you now glory, was not then born. You were under the British crown. Your fathers esteemed the English government as the home government, England as the fatherland, although a considerable distance from your home, imposed in the exercise of its parental prerogatives upon its colonial children such restraints, burdens, and limitations as in its mature judgment it deemed wise, right, and proper. But your fathers, who had not adopted the idea of the infallibility of government and the absolute character of its acts, presumed to differ from the home government in respect to the wisdom and the justice of some of those burdens and restraints. They went so far as to pronounce the measures of government unjust, unreasonable, and oppressive, and altogether such as ought not to be quietly submitted to. I scarcely need say, fellow citizens, that my opinion of those measures fully accords with that of your fathers. Feeling them harshly and unjustly treated by the home government, your fathers, like men of honesty and men of spirit, earnestly sought redress. They petitioned and remonstrated. They did so in a decorous, respectful, and loyal manner. This, however, did not answer the purpose. They saw themselves treated with sovereign indifference, coldness, and scorn, yet they persevered.
Oppression makes a wise man mad. Your fathers became restive under the treatment. They felt themselves the victim of grievous wrongs, wholly incurable in their colonial capacity. With brave men, there's always a remedy for oppression. Just here, the idea of a total separation of the colonies from the crown was born. It was a startling idea, much more so than we at this distant time regarded. The timid and the prudent of that day were of course shocked and alarmed by it. Their oppression to the then dangerous thought was earnest and powerful, but amid all their terror and affrighted voicifications against it, the alarming and revolutionary idea moved on, and the country with it. On the 2nd of July, 1776, the old colonial Congress, after dismay to the lovers of ease and the worshippers of property, clothed with that dreadful idea all the authority of national sanction, they did so in the form of a resolution. We seldom hit upon resolutions drawn up in their day, whose transparency is all equal it. Resolved that these united colonies and of the right ought to be free and independent states that are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown. Citizens, your fathers made good that resolution. They succeeded, and today you reap the fruits of their success. The freedom gained is yours, and you, therefore, must properly celebrate this anniversary. The 4th of July is the first great fact in your nation's history, the very ring bolt of the chain of your yet undeveloped destiny. Pride and patriotism, not less than gratitude, prompt you to celebrate and to hold it perpetual remembrance. I have said that the Declaration of Independence is the ring bolt of the chain of your nation's destiny. So indeed, I regard it. The principles contained in that instrument are saving principles. Stand by those principles. Be true to them on all occasions, in all places, against all foes, and at whatever cost.
Fellow citizens, I am not wanting in respect for the fathers of this republic. The signers of the Declaration of Independence were brave men. I cannot contemplate their great deeds with less than admiration. They were statesmen, patriots, and heroes, and for the good they did and the principles they contended for, I will unite with you to honor their memory. They loved their country better than their own private interests, and all will concede that is a rare virtue that ought to command respect. He who will intelligently lay his life for his country is a man who is not a human nature to despise. Your fathers staked their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor on the cause of their country. In their admiration of liberty, they lost sight of all other interests. They were peacemen, but they preferred revolution to peaceful submission to bondage. They were quiet men, but they did not shrink from agitating against oppression. They showed forbearance, but they knew its limits. They believed in order, but in the order of tyranny, with them nothing was settled that was not right. With them, justice, liberty, and humanity were final, not slavery and oppression. You may well cherish the memory of such men. They were great in their day and generation. Their solid manhood stands out the more as we contrast it with these degenerate times. How circumspect, exact, and proportionate were all their movements. How unlike the politicians of an hour. Their statesmen looked beyond the passing moment and stretched away in strength into the distant future. Mark them, fully appreciating the hardship to be encountered, firmly believing in their right of their cause, wisely measuring the terrible odds against them. Your fathers, the fathers of this republic, laid their cornerstone of the national superstructure which has risen and still rises on grandeur around you. Of this fundamental work, the day is the anniversary. Our eyes were met with demonstrations of joyous enthusiasm. The cause which led to the separation of the colonies from the British Crown have never lacked for a tongue. They have all been taught in your common schools, narrated at your firesides, unfolded from your pulpits, and unthundered from your legislative halls, and are familiar to you as household words. They form the staple of your national poetry and eloquence. I leave, therefore, the great deeds of your fathers to others. My business, if I have any here today, is with the present. The accepted time with God and His cause is the ever-living now. We have to do with the past only as we can make it useful to the present and to the future. Now is the time, the important time. Your fathers have lived, died, and have done their work, and have done much of it well. You live and must die, and you must do your work. You have no right to enjoy a child's share in the labor of your fathers unless your children are to be blessed by your labors. You have no right to wear out and waste the hard-earned fame of your fathers to cover your indolence. Fellow citizens, pardon me. Allow me to ask, why am I called upon to speak here today? What have I, or those I represent, to do with your national independence? Are the great principles of political freedom and of natural justice embodied in that Declaration of Independence extended to us? And am I therefore called upon to bring our humble offering to the national altar and to confess the benefits and express devout gratitude for the blessings resulting from your independence to us? Would to God, both for your sakes and ours, that an affirmative answer could be truthfully returned to these questions. Then would my task be light and my burden easy and delightful. But such is not the state of the case. I say it with a sad sense of the disparity between us. I am not included within the pale of this glorious anniversary. Your high independence only reveals the immeasurable distance between us. The blessings in which you this day rejoice and are not enjoyed in common, the rich inheritance of justice, liberty, prosperity, and independence bequeathed by your fathers, is shaped by you, not by me. The 4th of July is yours, not mine. You may rejoice. I must mourn. To drag a man in fetters into the grand illuminated temple of liberty and call upon him to join you in joyous anthems were inhuman mockery and sacrilegious irony. Do you mean, citizens, to mock me by asking me to speak today?
Fellow citizens, above your national tumultuous joy, I hear the mournful wail of millions, whose chains, heavy and grievous yesterday, are today rendered more intolerable by the jubilee shouts that reach them. To forget them, to pass lightly over their wrongs, and to chime in with the popular theme would be treasonous, most scandalous and shocking, and would make me reproach before God and the world. My subject, then citizens, is American slavery. I shall see this day from the slave's point of view, standing here, identified with the American bondman, making his wrongs mine. I do not hesitate to declare with all my soul that the character and conduct of this nation never looked blacker to me than on this 4th of July. Whether we turn to the declarations of the past or to the professions of the present, the conduct of the nation seems equally hideous and revolting. America is false to the past, false to the present, and solemnly binds herself to be false to the future. standing with God in the crushed and bleeding slave on this occasion, I will, in the name of humanity, which is outraged, in the name of liberty, which is fettered, in the name of the Constitution and the Bible, which are disregarded and trampled upon, dare to call in question and to denounce with all emphasis, I can command everything that served to perpetuate slavery, the great sin and shame of America. I will not equivocate. I will not excuse. I will use the severest language I can command, and yet no one word shall escape me that any man whose judgment is not blinded by prejudice, or who is not at heart a slave owner, shall not confess to be right and just. I fancy I hear someone of my audience say, it is just in this circumstance that you and your brother abolitionists failed to make a favorable impression on the public mind. Would you argue more and denounce less? Would you persuade more and rebuke less? Your cause would be much more likely to succeed. But I submit, where all is plain, there is nothing to be argued. What point is the anti-slavery creed? What point in the anti-slavery creed would you have me argue? On what branch of the subject do the people of this country need light?
Must I undertake to prove that the slave is a man? The slaveholders themselves acknowledge it in the enactment of laws for their government. They acknowledge it when they punish disobedience on the part of the slave. There are 72 crimes in the state of Virginia which, if committed by a black man, subject him to the punishment of death, while only 2 of the same crimes will subject a white man to the like punishment. What is this but the acknowledgement that the slave is a moral, intellectual, and responsible being? Southern statute books are covered with enactments forbidding under severe fines and penalties, the teaching of the slave to read or write. When you can point to any such laws in reference to the beasts of the field, then I may consent to argue the manhood of the slave. When the dogs in your streets, when the fowls of the air, when the cattle on your hills, when the fish of the sea and the reptiles that crawl shall be unable to distinguish the slave from a brute, then will I argue with you that the slave is a man. Is it not astonishing that while we are plowing, planting, and reaping, using all kinds of mechanical tools, erecting houses, constructing bridges, building ships, working in metals of brass, iron, copper, silver, and gold, that while we are reading, writing, and ciphering, acting as clerks, merchants, and secretaries, having among us lawyers, doctors, ministers, poets, authors, editors, orators, and teachers, that while we are engaged in all manner of enterprise common to other men, digging gold in California, capturing the whale in the Pacific, feeding sheep and cattle on the hillside, living, moving, acting, thinking, planning, living in families as husbands, wives, and children, and above all, confessing and worshiping the Christian's God, and looking hopefully for life and immortality beyond the grave, we are called upon to prove that we are men. Would you have me argue that man is entitled to liberty? That he is the rightful owner of his own body? You've already declared it. Must I argue the wrongfulness of slavery? Is it to be settled by the rules of logic and argumentation as a matter beset with great difficulty, involving a doubtful application of the principle of justice, hard to be understood? How should I look today in the presence of Americans to show that men have a natural right to freedom. To do so would be to make myself ridiculous and to offer an insult to your understanding. There is not a man beneath the canopy of heaven that does not know that slavery is wrong for him.
What? Am I to argue that it is wrong to make men brutes, to rob them of their liberty, to work them without wages, to keep them ignorant of their relations to their fellow men, to beat them with sticks, to flay their flesh with the lash, to load their limbs with irons, to hunt them with dogs, to sell them at auction, to sunder their families, to knock out their teeth, to burn their flesh, to starve them into obedience and submission to their masters? Must I argue that such a system thus, marked with blood and stained with pollution, is wrong? No, I will not. I have better employments for my time and strength than such arguments would imply. What then remains to be argued? Is it that slavery is not divine, that God did not establish it, that our doctors of divinity are mistaken? There is blasphemy in the thought. That which is inhuman cannot be divine. Who can reason on such a preposterous? I cannot. The time for such argument is past. At times like this, scorching irony, not convincing argument, is needed. Oh, had I the ability, and could I reach the nation's ear, I would, today, pour out a fiery stream of biting ridicule, blasting reproach, withering sarcasm and stern rebuke. For it is not the light that is needed, but fire. It is not the gentle shower, but thunder. We need the storm, the whirlwind, the earthquake. The feeling of the nation must be quickened. The conscience of the nation must be roused. The propriety of the nation must be startled. The hypocrisy of the nation must be exposed, and its crimes against God and man must be proclaimed and denounced.
What to the American slave is your 4th of July? I answer, a day that reveals to him, more than all other days in the year, the gross injustice and cruelty to which he is the constant victim. To him, your celebration is a sham, your boasted liberty an unholy license, your national greatness swelling vanity. Your sounds of rejoicing are empty and heartless, your denunciation of tyrants' brass-fronted impudence, your shouts of liberty and equality, hollow mockery, your prayers and hymns, your sermons and thanksgivings, with all your religious parade and solemnity, are to him mere bombast, fraud, deception, impiety, and hypocrisy, a thin veil to cover up crimes which would disgrace a nation of savages. There is not a nation on the earth guilty of practices more shocking and bloody than are these people of the United States at this very hour. Go where you may, search where you will, roam through all the monarchies and the despotisms of the old world, search out every abuse, and when you have found the last, lay your facts by the side of the everyday practices of this nation, and you will say with me that for revolting barbarity and shameless hypocrisy, America reigns without a rival. Take the American slave trade, which we are told by the papers is especially prosperous just now, as the price of men was never higher, and which is carried on in all the large towns and cities in 1/2 of this Confederacy. This trade is one of the peculiarities of American institutions. In several states, this trade is the chief source of wealth. is called the internal slave trade in order to divert from its horror with which the foreign slave trade is contemplated. The foreign slave trade has long since been denounced by this government as piracy, as an execrable traffic. To arrest it, this nation keeps a squadron at immense expense on the coast of Africa. Everywhere in this country, it is safe to speak of this foreign slave trade as a most inhuman traffic, opposed alike to the laws of God and of man. However, it is a notable fact that while so much execration is poured out by Americans upon those engaged in the foreign slave trade, the men engaged in the slave trade between the states pass without condemnation, and their business is deemed honorable.
Behold the practical operation of this internal slave trade, the American slave trade sustained by American politics and American religion. Here you will see men and women reared like swine